In this video, I wanted to share 5 apps that, as a polymath and somebody who is pursuing a path of lifelong learning, I find really valuable and use almost in my everyday life. I'm also going to share a little bonus app at the end, just because there is another app that I think is great for, somebody who is pursuing the path of a polymath or just in general. So stay tuned for that one. Now, these are apps that at this point in my journey, I honestly could not imagine my life without. And the first one is a little bit of an obvious one, I think, but it's no surprise that it is Notion. Now, I use Notion for absolutely everything. I have used Notion to manage my business, my doctoral research, and my entire life for years. Notion is a wiki. It's a way of creating databases. And I think that where, for me personally, most of the value comes in is the ability to link between different things. I can have a database for my library where I keep a record of the books that I've read and any notes and things that I have on them. But then I can also link individual books to different pages that I have about different things if I want to refer back to it. I think that the automation on Notion in terms of building workflows and things takes a little bit of time to get your head around if you're not a really techie person. But once you can kind of figure out how to create automations and things like that, it makes task management so much easier. I know that people are drawn to things like Asana or Trello, or I think even like Monday.com as ways of managing projects. But for me, they just don't have the flexibility and the capabilities that linking everything in a Notion database does. So for me, once I was able to wrap my head around things like integrations and automated workflows, I would take Notion over anything any day. If I could only live with one of these apps for the rest of my life, it would hands down be Notion. The next app is Brilliant. I started using Brilliant maybe 3 months ago or so. It was around the time I submitted my doctoral thesis. And I realized that I had really neglected aspects of my learning in terms of things like STEM. I really couldn't remember the last time I actually did any real mathematics, other than adding numbers and kind of the everyday maths that we use in terms of addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, percentages, fractions, ratios, that kind of stuff that we use in our day-to-day life. I guess things like money and finance as well. Beyond that, I'd probably forgotten everything I learned about maths in high school. It's been 10 years since I left high school, and I realized that developing my abilities in these areas was going to just build my knowledge and skills and help me to become a better learner and think about things more effectively. So I saw a lot of people on YouTube that were sponsored by Brilliant. I'm not sponsored by Brilliant, but I loved their videos and the app looked really great. So I gave it a go and I love it. I literally just try and do one exercise every day. I try to. Sometimes I fall off the wagon. Sometimes I'll spend half an hour on my phone just working on Brilliant things, but I really love it. I try and do one a day, and I'm very much of the mindset that it's better to just take small incremental steps regularly than to take big leaps at larger intervals of time. So I do try and do it every day. Obviously, like I said, I don't. Sometimes I fall off the bandwagon. The next app that I love is Masterclass. I gave Masterclass a go back when I was living in India for my PhD fieldwork. And I don't have any paid streaming services. So I don't pay for Netflix, anything like that. I have people in my life who do. So if I ever want to watch a show on Netflix or anything like that, I can just hit my sister up and be like, hey, what's your Disney Plus login? Or I can ask, my mum, hey, what's your Stan login? But I myself just don't subscribe to anything like that. But the one thing I will subscribe to is Masterclass. I did the free trial and I was I'm just gonna watch a bunch of these in the free trial and then I'm gonna cancel the free trial before it's up. But there were so many classes on there and they were so good. I feel it's learning and it's educational, but it's a very low stakes learning environment. most of the classes that you do, if they're broken down into like lots of little classes, you get like a PDF workbook that kind of goes with the class, which is great. So you can like save that and refer back to it. And the lessons are just like really like easy to watch. They're enjoyable. They're the type of thing that you can kind of listen to like a podcast, or you could sit down and watch it like you would kind of like binge a TV show. And some of them are kind of like leaning towards one of those rather than the other. But I think for the most part, like you can enjoy them in both ways. My favorite class on there was game design. And I don't know why, but I just found that fascinating. That was like one where I started it and I was like, this is so interesting. I like binged it and then I watched it a second time round. It was so interesting. I loved it. I took so many notes. I will always take notes in like my own words for things, even if it's like in the PDF notebook that you get, because I'm like, this stuck out to me. I want to remember this. But yeah, the game design one was like fascinating. I took so many notes for that. It's also great like to be able to hear and learn from people who have like really mastered their craft. As somebody who has been doing acting classes for about a year now, I love that I can watch a masterclass of a famous actor and hear their own approaches to their craft and kind of learn tips and tricks from them. I find it so valuable. So I love masterclass. The next one is Speechify. Speechify is essentially a text to voice app that I have been using for several years now, probably since the start of my PhD. You can pretty much put any text-based website or document in there, so like a docx, a PDF, and it will read it to you, so you can listen to it. The voices vary in terms of their listenability. There are AI ones that sound a lot more natural, but for me, I'm the type of person who listens to, a podcast on like 2x speed. I will listen to the Speechify voices on like 2x speed. So I'm kind of, I guess, used to listening to voices that don't sound super realistic anyway. So you can like choose between voices. I remember at one point I was listening to like the Snoop Dogg voice and he was like reading academic journal articles to me. It was so random. But I love it because there's so much information available online. You can access so many articles, so many books that are available in like PDF form. And I love that I can just like plug them into Speechify. I can listen to them being read to me in the same way that I would like an audiobook. It just saves so much time being able to listen to things as opposed to having to sit down and physically read them. It allows you to kind of like go out and multitask. So I'll love to like spend the afternoon in my garden, and just knowing that I can like listen to things that I wanted to read is really handy. It's great for just like leisurely reading as well as for your work. So I love to listen to journal articles. When I was finalizing my PhD thesis, I actually listened to my thesis being read to me, and I picked up on so many like grammatical mistakes and things that I just didn't pick up on when I was reading it myself. So I really love Speechify. It can be a little bit on the more expensive side, but for me, it's totally worth it. I use it every day, so I get a lot of value out of it. The fifth app that I use every single day is called Superhuman Activations, and I think they might be rebranding it just to Activations, but currently it's called Superhuman Activations. These are kind of positioned as an alternative to traditional guided meditations. Now, I don't think activations should be a replacement for meditation. Meditation, for the most part, is about mindfulness. It's about developing the ability to tap into listening to your body, observing, what's happening in your mind, observing how you feel. And so I think meditations are important in their own right, but activations are a really great way to complement this. I found myself being so drawn to a number of Joe Dispenza's meditations from Breaking the Habit of Being You. And there was this one in particular that I would listen to almost every day. And it was because it was very heavily about visualization. And I just loved it. I loved that this meditation was like asking me to like visualize my desired future. Because when I was in like the thick of my PhD fieldwork and I was struggling with my research, being able to like visualize what it was going to look and feel like when I had finished that was something that I found really good for my mental health and just my self-development and my mindset. And so when I discovered activations, it's essentially this entire app with libraries full of these more visualization focused activations or meditations. And so I love them. I love that, in the morning I can listen to something and it kind of walks me through the steps of thinking about how I want my day to go, or think about, what it means to kind of live my dream life, all of these different things. It allows you to tap into your emotions in the present moment as well as thinking about the future. And so I think that they're great. I get a lot of value out of them. I love starting my day with an activation. And like I mentioned, I think that they're a really great kind of thing to add to your mindfulness toolkit. Now, the bonus app that I have is one that I also use every day. I couldn't imagine my life without it. And it's not necessarily one that kind of focuses on our self-development or our education, but I still think it's really valuable. And it is called Reclaim.ai. I've seen a number of similar products like this, but I find this one to be the best. It is essentially an AI scheduler that you link to your calendar. So it's linked to my Google Calendar. My Google Calendar is actually linked to my Notion calendar, so the whole thing's all integrated. But basically, you can add events, add appointments, add things to your calendar, and it uses AI to like reshuffle things around for you, so you don't have to manually do that. It will only reshuffle the things in the calendar that are in like the Reclaim AI calendar. So if I add like a doctor's appointment to my Notion calendar, Reclaim AI isn't going to move that. It's going to move all of the stuff linked to Reclaim AI around that. And so with Reclaim AI, what I do is I have a number of habits set. So you can basically set a habit or something that you want to do. So I have things like edit YouTube videos, acting practice and training, visual art, things that I want to do on a regular basis, but I don't necessarily want to have to like block out the time myself or have to figure out how to fit them around my work commitments. And so you can say, these are my personal hours, these are my work hours. I want you to schedule, YouTube video editing 2 to 3 times per week for a 2 to 4 hour block. And you can rate it as being low, medium, high priority. So that will help the AI to determine when it goes and which things to prioritize. And it will slot. It will slot those into your calendar when you have gaps. And, if you've said that I only want to do YouTube video editing in my personal hours, it won't put it in your work hours and whatever. I find it really valuable for, somebody who works for myself from home. My schedule isn't just made up of like, I go to work, I do a 9 to 5, and then I have personal hours, and I can find it a little bit overwhelming to figure out how to get things done and fit things in. And I don't want to have to manually be time blocking my day. So the fact that I have Reclaim AI, which can help me to time block my day, is just really helpful. So that's a little bonus one for you. I would love to know down below what apps you use in your everyday life and what apps you couldn't live without, especially in terms of your ongoing education, the work you might be doing as a change maker, and living a purposeful life.